Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Dilbert Mann. I'm a member of the XDS Advisory Committee, and I'm here to introduce our next presenter. I've had the privilege of working with this individual for the last year and a half. I've co-presented with her last year at XDS, where she spoke on metrics, metrics that matter in production and in the industry as well. I've seen a glimpse of today's presentation, and it's fantastic. You're going to love it. I'm so proud of how this presentation has evolved over the last few months and how it retains the tradition of XDS, where we speak on the topic of metrics and metrics that matter. She is an expert at external development. She works at the Coalition, a Microsoft studio and home to the Gears of War franchise. She is an outsource manager, and she supports outsourcing strategy for her studio. Please welcome Carla Rylance.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming to my presentation. External Development Essentials, 3 Steps for Buy In Success. I hope you enjoy it. A little bit about me to start with. My name is Carla Rylance. As Dilbert said, I'm outsource manager at the Coalition, which is a Microsoft studio located here in Vancouver. And we're famous for the Gears of War franchise. And I'm going to go through a strategy that I use to help gain buy-in success with our internal teams by using management strategies. So first of all, what is buy-in? Buy-in is an agreement to support a decision. You have a vision that you're hoping to implement for your external development pipelines to increase efficiency. But getting your internal teams to come along with you on this journey that you're hoping to take isn't necessarily an easy task. In my experience, I've come across differences of opinions, people maybe not in the right frame of mind as the same frame of mind that I'm in. People maybe not understanding why we need to bring in new visions and not understanding how it can work. And people sometimes are also a little bit afraid of change. Things are working exactly the way that we need them to now. Why do we need to change the way we're doing things? And for me, the main reason we need to is external development is growing. So if we take a look at the XDS 2018 Insights report, we saw integrated development projects rise by 3% since the previous year. Co-development projects rose by 6% since the previous year. And the #1 voted reason for engaging in external development is to build more content and more features. Our scope is growing. Our projects are getting more and more in-depth and complex, but our internal teams aren't necessarily growing. So unless we build on and improve our external development efforts, we aren't going to increase in efficiency. This is, for me, why it's important to push forward with these visions, and using management is a way that I choose to go forward with this. So for me, what makes buy-in success? Buy-in success for me, if I can keep efficiency high or even increase efficiency, plus keeping motivation on the internal team high when implementing the vision, this for me is buy-in success. So for this presentation, I'm going to go through my 3 steps of buy-in success for you. First of all, we're going to look at optional styles for buy-in. This is optional management styles, and this is going to be the base of this strategy. Step 2, we're going to look at setting up a tiered approach using the management styles that we covered in the first step. And in step 3, we're going to track our progress using key performance indicators to try and figure out whether buy-in was actually successful. So step 1, optional styles for buy-in. I'm going to give you an overview of some different management styles, and I'm going to go through some of the traits that are associated with each of those management styles as well. If you're interested in this, I'd recommend looking at a guy called Daniel Goleman who penned this. Now, I'm going to range these styles on a scale of good to evil. Good being they have a mainly positive impact on the team. And the evil side can sometimes have a negative impact, but all of the styles are really, really good in their own different ways. So first of all, if we look at the evil side of the scale to start with, they've got this coercive management style. And the style and phrase is, do what I tell you. So it demands immediate compliance. But the reason it's on this evil side is if you're working with a skilled team, they can become a little bit annoyed with the micromanagement. But if you're using it with people who are maybe a little bit less skilled, there's not much learning that goes on. But at the same time, if you want to use this management style in a crisis situation, it's really great for pushing things in the right direction. If we look at the good side of the scale here, we've got a management style called coaching. And the style and phrase for this one is, try this. It's great for building up strengths, building up people for the future, developing them, and it's great for when people are motivated to want to achieve more. If you need any task completing at a fast pace, it's not going to be the best management style to use. On the more evil side of the scale here, we've got this pace-setting style. Style and phrase, do as I do, now. So it's great for setting standards, setting quality bars, getting things done fast. And if you're working with people that are highly skilled, this is great because they won't need much direction and they will go along with the vision. If you're working with people that are maybe a little bit less skilled, it's not going to work so much because they're going to need a little bit more direction. Next, on the good side of the scale, we've got this affiliative management style. The style and phrase for this one is people come first. It's great for building motivation, healing rifts on teams, keeping people motivated. The only time this isn't maybe good is when there's a crisis situation, but it's really great to use with other management styles as well. Next, this is more of a strong positive, really. This is the authoritative management style. Style and phrase, come with me. And it's perfect for bringing people towards a vision that you have. As long as your vision is well thought out, road-mapped, organized, people will come with you when using this management style. If, for example, it's not particularly well organized or the leader isn't quite credible, people aren't going to want to come with you. Next, we've got this democratic management style. Style and phrase, what do you think? And it's great for forging consensus through participation. So if you're working with a highly skilled team, this is great to kind of get their thoughts on risks, any problems which might occur. If you're working with a less skilled team, you might not get the input that you need. So this gives us a bit of an overview of the management styles we're going to use for our base of this strategy. Now, if I was to draw a line down the center between the good and the evil side, can I get a show of hands who would say that they lean more towards the management styles on the evil side of the scale? Oh, there's a few. And who would say that they lean more towards the good side of the scale? Okay, we've got a little bit more on the good side there. It's kind of interesting to see how it's split. Now, going forward for this strategy, I don't want you to think of these management styles as personality types. I mean, people are going to generally lean towards more one or the other or a group of them, but I want you to think of these as tools. Tools you can use to help gain buy-in from your internal team. So that's the end of step one. We've got our base of management styles. We went through an overview of them. We went through some of the traits that are attached to them. And in step two, we're going to look at using these management styles, setting up a tiered approach. So we're going to go through two scenarios to give you an idea of how this can work. As I say, we're going to tier our management in a certain way. And by the end of it, you should be able to see how this can work in any scenario. So I really hope it's useful for you to take home. So scenario one. This is our vision. Tracking of external pipeline issues. You have a lot of external pipeline issues coming in and out of the studio, mostly through email, and sometimes it can be a little bit hard to track. So this is something that you want to start tracking, start collecting data from. So maybe you want to start adding some of the issues into Jira. Maybe that's something that we can start assigning to different people, start tracking how things are going, but it means implementing a new direction, and that's something that you're going to need to get buy-in on. So first of all, I'm going to think about my vision goals. I want to make sure any issues that are brought up from our external teams are solved efficiently. I want to make sure that by doing this, I'm going to highlight any problem areas which will help us tackle them in the future. And I also want to use this to collect KPIs so we can track our progress. So when I talk about this tiered buy-in approach, when it comes to buy-in for me, I want to make sure I've got my team on board with my vision. But this also includes making sure that the vision is in alignment and going in the correct direction. So we're going to split the way that we manage our vision into two different sections. We're going to look at pillar management, and we're also going to look at vision management. Now, when it comes to pillar management, how can I manage the people that are going to want to be involved in the implementation of this? Who am I going to need to get buy-in from? How do I know which management styles to use to get the best chance of buy-in? So there's two things I'm going to bear in mind. How involved is the pillar going to be when it comes to implementation of the vision? And how aware are they when it's going to come to implementation? So how knowledgeable are they going to be? How are they going to be able to help track and monitor risks? And when it comes to vision management, this one I also find really important. Because for me, when I'm getting buy-in from a team, it isn't just when I'm selling the idea to them, when I'm pitching this vision. I have to gain buy-in through when we're implementing the vision and also when the vision is maintained. So when I talk about buy-in pillars, who are the people that are going to need to involve in some way when implementing this new vision? So say for this scenario, you might have outsourced art production management, people that are involved in art production, problem solving, and daily communication with external teams. You might have outsourced artists, people that are involved in art production and daily communication with external teams. You might have the leads also wanting a stake in this, people that are involved in art production, problem solving, internal people management. You might have tools leads, people that are involved in the tools pipelines, problem solving, internal people management, as well as IT leads involved in infrastructure, problem solving, training of internal teams. And also production might want to have a stake in this as well. People involved with problem solving, internal people management, and risk management. So these are the people that we're going to need to get buy-in from. How do I work out how to use the management styles most effectively to get the best chance of buy-in? So I've got this little quadrant chart here. And we've got our involvement and our awareness. So across the top, we have low to high involvement, and across the side, we have low to high awareness. And so I start to place the pillars for this particular scenario, tracking of external pipeline issues, into this quadrant chart, depending on how aware and involved they're going to be. And from here, I can start to think about, how am I going to manage these pillars best to get the best chance of buy-in? So for me, anyone in these top two quadrants here, people that are pretty highly aware of any risks that are going to happen, I'm going to use this democratic style. What do you think? I'm going to involve them and try and gain consensus through participation. Anyone in this bottom left-hand quadrant, we don't have any examples in this scenario, but we can use this more of a coaching style. So someone that is going to be highly involved in the implementation of the vision, but doesn't necessarily have the awareness to be able to monitor risks, we want to build them up for the future. Using this coaching style can work really, really well. And anyone in the bottom right-hand quadrant, maybe someone who's not quite as aware of the risks and not as highly involved, we still want to keep them informed and make sure that they're aware that people who are going to be highly involved are on the case. Now, when it comes to vision management, I'm going to keep managing the pillars exactly as we're going to here. When it comes to the selling stage, when I'm pitching the idea to the internal team, I'm going to layer a management style on top of all of this to help push the vision in the right direction. So when it comes to the selling stage, you might choose to use this authoritative management style. So as long as you're prepared, organized, you've got everything roadmapped, you can use this authoritative style to push the vision in the right direction at the selling stage. When it comes to implementation of the vision, you might choose to use a different management style. Say, for example, this pace-setting style. do as I do now. You want to be able to make sure that you're running with this at a fast pace, you're getting your hands in there as well, setting standards for the people that you are working with. And when it comes to the maintaining stage, as long as everything is running smoothly, you might choose to use this affiliative management style to make sure that everyone is remaining motivated. So by tiering your management depending on the pillars that are going to want to be involved, their involvement, their awareness, you can get your team on board with your vision by managing them correctly. But you can also retain vision alignment and make sure that your vision is being pushed in the right direction by using management styles on top of that. So we're going to go on to a different scenario just so you can see how this would work. Scenario 2, current external team, improve capability. This is our vision. So we have a crisis on our hands. We have too little internal capacity to complete character hero assets. There's no chance we can do it internally. So there's a chance you are thinking, we can maybe send this external. You have a current external team who are working on character assets, but they're maybe not quite as complicated. Maybe they're like NPC characters. And the team that you're working with are doing a great job, and they're thirsty to get their hands into something more complex. This is something that you think you could train this external team up to getting to doing these hero characters. So this is something that you want to try and get buy-in on from your internal team. So when it comes to the vision goals for this one, you might want to make sure that the external team are going to hit the expected quality bar. You might want to make sure that they're going to complete tasks with little oversight. And you also want to make sure that they're going to reach the expected output volume. So the buy-in pillars for this might be a little bit different because the scenario is different. So you might have outsourced production management that still want to be involved, as well as outsource artists, as well as leads. You might have art direction that might want to be involved in the buy-in for this as well. Someone involved with art production, problem-solving, internal team. Production, again, might want to be involved and have a say. As well as executive production, involved with problem-solving, internal team management, and risk management. So these are the pillars that we're going to work with on this scenario. Again, we go back to our quadrant chart, and we start to think, how involved and how aware are each of those pillars when it comes to this scenario? So again, you can start to place your pillars in here to gauge which management style is best to use to gain buy-in. Again, anyone in the top 2 quadrants, this democratic management style is perfect to use. You're gaining consensus using participation. Anyone in the bottom left-hand quadrant, we have outsource artists in this one for this example. They might be highly involved when it comes to implementing this, but maybe don't have the skill set to be able to monitor the risks that might be involved in implementation. So using this coaching style would be perfect to develop them for the future. And anyone in the bottom right-hand quadrant, again, we can use this affiliative management style to make sure that they're informed of progress. Now, when it comes to the vision management at the selling stage, for this example, it's a crisis situation. You might choose to use a different management style. So you might choose to use this more coercive style. You know, do what I tell you. It's a crisis situation. We need to get this sorted. When it comes to the implementation stage, you might choose again to use this pace-setting style to make sure that things are going at a fast pace. And when it comes to vision management, when it comes to maintaining, you might choose to use this affiliative style again, as long as everything's going smoothly and according to plan. And so we've gone through 2 different scenarios for this buy-in strategy. I hope you can see how using this can increase success on buy-in by catering your management styles towards the people that you are working with. Their involvement and their awareness plays a part. And I also hope you can see how this strategy can be used in any scenario that you choose. So, step 3. Tracking progress using KPIs. This is the fun part. So we're going to measure the effectiveness of the buy-in. And we're going to track the success of the buy-in. Was buy-in actually successful or not? So, the key performance indicators, what are we going to collect for this? So, the KPIs that I want to generate go back to one of my previous slides. What makes buy-in success? And so we're going to collect KPIs based on this. We're going to look at an efficiency KPI. We're going to look at a motivation KPI and an overall buy-in success KPI. So first of all, what's a KPI? A KPI is a key performance indicator. It's a measurable value that demonstrates how effectively a company is achieving key business objectives. And it's a pretty simple piece of math that you can use to calculate a KPI. All you need is your expected data and your actual data. You divide the two. This will give you a KPI percentage. Now, you can use this percentage to gauge how well something is performing. So say, for example, if your calculation comes at over 75%, you could say that would be normal performance. Anything between 50 and 75% you could class as underperforming. And anything below 50% you could say requires escalation. And if you want to learn a bit more, I'm as red now as I am in that photo of me. Yeah, you can go back to the presentation that myself and Dilber did in 2017. There is a section on there about KPIs, how to calculate them, and it goes into a little bit more depth than I'm going to today. We're going to go back to our second scenario. Current team, improved capability. How can we calculate efficiency KPIs from this? We go back to our vision goals. We want to make sure they're hitting the expected quality. We want to make sure that they're completing tasks with little oversight. And we want to make sure they're reaching the expected output volume. So how do we track data to work out whether they're hitting the expected quality bar? What we can do is we can start collecting, say, the number of art direction related feedback we gave on one of those hero assets. So say, for example, we expected to give 10 pieces of art direction feedback, but we actually gave 18 pieces of art direction feedback. Divide the two. This comes out a KPI percentage of 55%, which we would class as, 55? Yeah, 55. 55%. That's underperforming. I can't read it from here. We want to make sure that they're completing tasks with little oversight as well. So one thing that we can do here is start looking at the number of iterations that the asset went through. So say, for example, we expected them to go through 4 iterations on a hero asset, but they actually went through 5 iterations. This will come out at a KPI of 80%, which we would class as normal performance. And for expected output volume, you can maybe start to look at how many man days were approved within the milestone. So say, for example, you have a capacity of 100 man days. You had 40 man days approved within that milestone. This would be a KPI of 40%, which you would class as requires escalation. And from there, you can start to track how the KPIs are looking throughout each of your vision buy-in stages. So when you're selling the vision, you don't necessarily have any data here because this is collected from the external teams. But when it comes to implementing the vision and maintaining the vision, you can collect KPIs to start thinking about how efficient has this been. And by taking the expected quality, little oversight, and expected output KPIs and averaging them together, if you look down the bottom, that line there, this is your overall efficiency KPI. And I'm hoping that throughout the milestones, you'll start to see those KPIs improve, which will also affect motivation. Now, the motivation KPI. This one's a little bit more tricky, I suppose. So the way that we can calculate that is by gauging the amount of negative reactions you get at each stage of implementation So you can do this by information that you collect in one-to-ones with your team. You can get information from retrospectives that you host, and also through email exchanges as well. So say, for example, during one-to-ones in the implementation stage, say, for example, you expected a couple of pieces of negative feedback, 2 pieces, but you actually received 3 pieces of negative feedback. This would be a KPI of 66%, which would be classed as underperformance. And you can do the same, retrospectives, emails, any other kinds of exchanges that you have. And again, we can start then mapping these KPIs throughout the vision implementation stages. And you can actually start to collect this data at the selling stage as well, because this is data you can start collecting from day one. So if you want to work out an overall motivation KPI, if you average out your one-to-one, retrospective, and email KPIs, this will give you an overall motivation KPI, which you can see down the bottom here. Now, overall, ideally, you want these KPIs to be normal performance all the way through. In this example, it maybe hasn't happened. So, how do we calculate an overall buy-in success KPI to work out, was buy-in actually successful on this vision? Pretty simple. Efficiency plus motivation equals buy-in success. So we take our efficiency KPI and our motivation KPIs, make an average of them. This will give us an overall buy-in success KPI. And again, we can then map that out across the milestones to see if we're hitting our buy-in success. So if we take our efficiency KPI, motivation KPI, average them, down the bottom here we have our overall buy-in success KPIs. Now this is where you can start thinking, were my management styles working or were they not? Say, for example, you look at the selling phase here, the overall buy-in success KPI is at 69%, which would class as underperformance. Now, at this point, you could go, oh, maybe that coercive management style I used was a bit too harsh. Maybe I could have done something a little bit differently. Maybe in the future, you can change your management styles up a bit to help gain better success at the buy-in stage, at the selling stage, sorry. When it's at the implementation stage here, we have a dip in an overall buy-in success KPI, but that could be associated with maybe the management style that we use in the selling stage wasn't quite working correctly, but also the efficiency KPI that's come back might be lowering motivation as well. But then when you start to see efficiency improving, you start to see the overall buy-in success KPI go up throughout the maintain milestones. And by the time we get to milestone 2 of maintaining, everything's in the green. That's when you have overall buy-in success. So I really hope that you enjoyed this session. We went through my 3 stages for buy-in success. Went through step 1, the optional styles for buy-in. This is something that you can use every day and you can start to implement straight away. And I hope this is going to be a really useful base for you to use at your studios. We went through setting up a tiered approach using the management styles we learned in step 1. And by catering your management styles to the pillars you're working with, their involvement on the implementation, this will help you to realize what management styles are best depending on the pillar. And in step 3, we went through tracking our progress using key performance indicators to see if buy-in was actually successful at each stage of implementation. So I really, really hope that you go home and you try this and that it's useful for you. Overall, this should be relatively easy and fast to implement. All it takes is just understanding the management styles and putting them into your everyday processes. When it comes to the KPIs, it may look a little bit daunting, but you can start collecting the data from past exchanges, and you can start collecting it right now as well. By catering your management styles depending on the pillar, you can increase harmony on your team, as well as increasing credibility for yourself, because you're managing your team as effectively as possible. And by getting buy-in success, you're obviously going to increase efficiency. And when you're implementing these new visions, it's all about increasing efficiency. That's what's super important about this. And once efficiency is nice and high, you're going to have great studio impact. And that's super important as well. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this session. Please rate it in the XDS app.